Stocks on Wall Street close higher amid volatility. S&P 500 and Nasdaq break back into the green after strong earning reports from Bank of America and Morgan Stanley. Dow Jones ends near the flat line as concerns over China trade negotiations and U.S. government shutdown weighs on the stock. Asian markets trade with the gains tracking U.S. market cues. GIFT Nifty is indicating a positive start for the Indian market. Crude oil prices slipped to a 5-month low on U.S.-China trade tensions and International Energy Agency's prediction of a supply surplus next year. Gold, on the other hand, breaches the $4,200 a mark as rate cuts bet rises. And on the earnings front, Axis Bank reports a steady September quarter with strong loan book and net interest income beat, while profit takes a one-time provision hit. Meanwhile, IT major Infosys and Wipro are set to report their Q2 FY26 numbers today, along with Eternal, Nestle and Jio Finance. Hello, good morning. You've tuned into CNBC TV 18. You're watching Power Breakfast with me, Vinny Motiwala. And interestingly, we're seeing and hoping for a good day coming in for the markets today as well. First up, let's start by looking at what the Asian markets are doing this morning and how they've opened up. A positive start is what we're seeing coming in for the Asian markets. Hang Seng, a slight bit of a positive bias, 0.05% over there. But Taiwan index, that's managing to hold on to very strong gains of 1.4%. We also have the Nikkei that's managing to hold on to 7/10 to 8/10% of gain for the Nikkei. That's the Japanese index. Australian index too is holding on to strong gains of almost 1%. Shanghai, a slight bit of a gain there on that front, 0.09%. But good opening is what we're seeing coming in for the Asian markets. Let's look at the Nifty implied open. What's the indication there? 40-point uptick today is what we're watching out for. So hoping the momentum that we saw coming in for the markets yesterday seems like that will continue in today's trading session. 40-point uptick indication for the Nifty implied open. But a lot of global overnight cues is what we have coming in from the US markets as well. And how is all this going to be impacting our Indian markets? We have a team of research joining in with us to set you up for trade, tell you which are the important stocks to watch out for, cues in the world of F&O as well. Before I go to Gaurav and Sudarshan, let me take you all through the important cues that we're keeping an eye out on today. US markets, like I mentioned in the headlines as well, right? We're seeing S&P 500, Nasdaq that managed to close with gains. Dow was slightly flattish with a negative bias in yesterday's trading session, with commentary that came in from Trump as well this morning, where Trump was saying that Modi has assured that India will not buy Russian oil now. So that is something that we're keeping an eye out on in terms of commentary that comes in from him. US-China trade tension, that's something that we are watching out for as well. FIIs yesterday were buyers in the trading session, 68 crores of buy coming in from FII and buy coming in also from DIIs, 4,650 crores in terms of buy. Watch out for two listings today. We have a Rubicon Research Limited that is listing, as well as a Canara Robeco Asset Management Company. So keep an eye out on these two as well. Important result reaction in terms of cues that we'll keep an eye out on for individual stocks. Axis Bank, Angel One, KEI, HDFC Life among some of the names that reported their numbers yesterday post-market hours, and results today we'll keep out for important ones like IT Pack, Infosys, we have Wipro that is coming out, LTI Mindtree, and on the FMCG side, Nestle will be reporting its numbers. Other than that, Eternal also is something that we're keeping an eye out on in terms of earnings today. Nifty, obviously 178-point uptick yesterday we saw coming in for the Nifty 50. Mid and small cap also did well in yesterday's trading session, and today hoping that momentum continues. Nifty implied open is 40 points up in the morning session. But let's go across to Gaurav now and tell you which are the important stocks to watch out for in today's trading session. Good morning, Gaurav, and a lot of earnings reaction. But apart from that, also, what else are you keeping an eye out on?
Well, yes, first let's talk about earnings candidate, Axis Bank. Now, net profit that declined almost by 26%, and I'll come to that in detail in a bit. Apart from that, let's also talk about HDFC Life, because total AP, that was in line, but at the same time, value of new business, which is VNB margin, that was actually at 24.1%, a bit higher than what we were estimating. HDB Financials, if you look at the numbers, net profit increased just by, actually declined almost by 2% on a year-on-year basis. And at the same time, if you look at credit cost, now that increased almost by 20 basis points. So that is something that we should be watching out for. L&T Finance, we saw net profit increasing almost by 6%. And at the same time, credit cost that comes to 2.4% now for this quarter versus what it was at 2.23%. Angel One, if you look at the numbers on a year-on-year basis, we are seeing some kind of fall, but on a sequential basis, numbers are good. And at the same time, if you look at the average client funding book, that has increased almost by 26% on a sequential basis. Apart from that, let's also talk about Oberoi Realty. Although these numbers are not, these are not the numbers that we should be watching out for Realty Pack. But at the same time, if you look at net profit, that increased almost by 29%, and revenue that increased almost by 35% on a year-on-year basis. Let's also talk about some of the other stocks. We have got KC International, who won an order worth 1,036 crores. BEL, that won an order worth 592 crores, and this is from the defense system. And Jyoti Structures, this company also won an order worth 288 crores. Lastly, let's also not forget about RBL Bank, because there is going to, board meeting is going to happen on 18th of October to discuss fundraising via equity issuance. And lastly, let's also not forget about IEX, because SEBI has now unfolded insider trading worth 173 crores. So let's also watch out on all these stocks in a day to day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Gaurav. But let's go across to Sudarshan now, who's here to tell us what to watch out for in the world of F&O. Good morning, Sudarshan.
Good morning, Vinny. So it was a strong day of trade, and thanks to the broad-based buying that we have seen, Nifty has gained somewhere around 200 points. And it seems that we might continue with the gains even in today's session. And that's because the reason I'm saying this, because FIs, we have seen buying both in the cash as well in the derivative market. They have reduced short positions, have added long positions, and GIFT Nifty is also indicating a start with gain of around 40 to 50 points. First, look at the flows in the cash market. FIs have turned buyers. The amount is small, but nevertheless, it's a buy. They have bought almost 70 crore. DIs continue to maintain the buying interest. They have bought more than rupees 4,600 crore. In the index futures too, FIs have bought more than 1,000 crore, and they have added long positions of more than 2,000 contracts. And also they have reduced short positions by almost 3,100 contracts. Now look at the options data. Before I talk about that PCR, if you take a look, there's a sharp increase. Again, it's back over one level. Now on the call side of the options data, 25,200 call has seen shedding, and 25,500 call has seen maximum addition. So now on the upside, 25,500 becomes the resistance level. On the downside, 25,200 or say 25,150. This is the range that Nifty will try to protect. That's the reason support for Nifty, 25,150. First resistance, 25,450. For Nifty Bank, support would be 56,500. That is the yesterday's low, and resistance would be 57,000. RBL Bank has come out of the band. Sammaan Capital remains in the band.
Okay, Sudarshan, thank you so much for that. But let's go back to Gaurav now again to get more details in terms of Axis Bank numbers. What are they looking like, Gaurav?
Well, as Axis Bank, when we look at the numbers, it looked like a mixed set of bag, and I'll tell you why. When we look at loan book growth, that was actually healthy at around 11.7%. In fact, it was higher than Street's expectation. Deposit growth that also remained in a double digit, but at the same time, there was additional one-time impact on provisions once again worth 1,231 crores, and that is the reason why we saw PAT falling almost by 26%. Now let's go to basic numbers. Net interest income increased almost by 2%. We saw PPOP declining by 3%, but it was in line with what the street was expecting. But at the same time, because of higher provisions, we saw profit declining almost by 26% on a year-on-year basis. So what happened in this quarter? First is that loan book growth was strong. At the same time, net interest margins, now they came in strong. They were at around 3.73%, a decline of just 7 basis points versus street's expectation of 3.63%. So definitely better than street's expectation. Gross slippages due to technical impact. Now that also declined almost by 44% in absolute terms. And at the same time, if you look at gross slippage and net slippage ratio and gross credit cost and net credit cost, we saw some amount of healthy improvement. But what went wrong is that once again they came up with one-off provision, but 1,231 crores, and this was directed by RBI. Now bank is saying is that this was because of the two discontinued crop loan variants, which was actually impacting the profitability. Management says that this will get written back by 31st March of 2028, or if these accounts get settled, if these accounts get run down. So management is confident about it, but definitely on the back of this, we will be watching out on how street reacts on the numbers of Axis Bank today.
Okay, Gaurav, thank you so much for that. We'll keep an eye out on Axis Bank. But on that note, we're going to submit a very short break. After the break, we'll get you a special segment, Trump Watch. Stay tuned in. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now getting you the latest update on Trump-related developments. We have Dia joining in with us in our special segment, Trump Watch. Good morning, Dia.
Good morning. Starting off with a significant diplomatic development, US President Donald Trump has said that Prime Minister Modi has vowed to halt purchases of oil from Russia within a short period of time, signaling a possible resolution to a key issue at the center of trade tensions between Washington and New Delhi. Trump said that Modi made this comment during a previously undisclosed conversation on Wednesday. Let's listen in.
We have a great relationship. He just said that 2 days ago, as you know. We have a great relationship. No, we were not happy with him buying oil from Russia, because that lets Russia continue on with this ridiculous war where they've lost 1.5 million people, by the way. Russia's lost 1.5 million people, soldiers mostly. This is a war that should have never started, but it's a war that Russia should have won in the first week, and they're going into the 4th year. And I want to see it stop. So I was not happy that India was buying oil. And he assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia. That's a big stop. Who would think I created peace in the Middle East and can't get the two guys to settle? But I think we'll get them. But if India doesn't buy oil, it makes it much easier. And they're not going to buy. They assured me they will. Within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia. And they'll go back to Russia after the war's over.
Meanwhile, tensions prevail in West Asia. Israel has warned it will renew its war on Gaza if Hamas fails to comply with all the steps outlined in Trump's Gaza peace plan. Israeli Defense Minister Katz has directly told the military to prepare for what he called the complete defeat of Hamas in Gaza if the group does not disarm and return the body of hostages. And on the economic front, Trump has officially declared that the U.S. is in a trade war with China. When asked by reporters whether the world's two largest economies were heading into a prolonged trade conflict, Trump said, well, you're in one now. This comes as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has floated the idea of a longer truce, suggesting a pause on high tariffs on Chinese goods. That's all for today. Now back to you.
Okay, Dia, thank you so much for the latest update coming in there. But keeping it with what U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said, that a Trump administration does not want to decouple with China. Speaking at the CNBC summit, Bessent said that U.S. does not want to escalate tensions with them. And this comes after the Treasury Secretary assured talks with China continue and the meeting between President Trump as well as China's Xi Jinping are on track. Listen in.
We have things that are more powerful than the rare earth export controls that the Chinese want to put on. And sir, to be clear, this is China versus the world. It's not a U.S.-China problem. We don't want to decouple with China. I don't believe they want to decouple. But this rare earth export control is a sign of decoupling.
But we need them, don't we?
Sorry?
We need those rare earth minerals, don't we?
We do.
I mean, that's leverage that they have on us.
But we have lots of leverage on them, too.
And in the U.S. market, Wall Street largely ended higher, led by Bank of America and Morgan Stanley's earnings. Dow Jones was flat in trade. Nasdaq and S&P 500 closed higher in yesterday's session. We have CNBC's Kate Rogers to give us a wrap on what happened on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were mostly up across the major averages in Wednesday's trading, but cut their gains throughout the day in the midst of a lot of market volatility. The Dow lower 17 points, the S&P 500 climbing 27, the tech-heavy Nasdaq up 148. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CNBC on Wednesday that the Trump administration will set price floors across several industries to combat market manipulation by China. Bessent argued that China has driven foreign competitors out of the rare earth industry by using its dominance to cut prices. Last week, China announced new restrictions on rare earths. In response, President Trump threatened to hit Beijing with more 100% tariffs. Bessent also said the U.S. needs to set up a strategic mineral reserve and that J.P. Morgan is interested in helping to create it. As the U.S. government shutdown enters its third week, a federal judge on Tuesday granted a temporary restraining order, which blocks the Trump administration from laying off federal workers during the shutdown. The ruling came shortly after White House Budget Director Russ Vought said the administration could cut more than 10,000 federal jobs during the shutdown. The judge said the administration's proposed actions were, quote, contrary to the laws.
Thank you so much for that. Now, shifting focus to the U.S. economy, the Fed's Beige Book report shows President Donald Trump's tariffs are pushing inflation generally higher as companies are caught between absorbing the cost or passing them on to the consumers. We've seen CNBC's Steve Leesman joining in with us with more details.
The Fed's Beige Book telling a story of a lackluster economy suffering from uncertainty, low hiring, and inflation. The collection of anecdotes from around the Fed's 12 districts said economic activity was little changed from the prior report, with 3 districts reporting modest growth, five seeing no change, and 4 seeing a slight softening. The Beige Book went on to say that consumer spending inched down on retail goods, with EV demand boosting autos, leisure, and hospitality, seeing declines in international travels, and strong demand by high-income earners and low- and middle-income households were looking for discounts out there. Manufacturing was hit by higher tariffs and waning demand, and costs were rising due to tariffs. Labor demand was generally muted. Fed Governor Chris Waller, meanwhile, giving a speech on artificial intelligence, saying he was generally bullish long-term, but said there could be job losses before there are job gains. He specifically cited the possibility of white-collar job losses. Fed officials have been increasingly talking about AI and the effect it's going to have on the economy. No clear consensus out there emerging, but Waller said that while there are unique risks, security and things like that, he expected it to be generally positive for the economy, though it would take time to see those results.
Thank you so much for that. But on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. After the break, we'll get you what's happening in the world of commodities. Stay tuned in. Welcome back to Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now, let's focus on Infosys because that's set to report its Q2 FY26 numbers today. What are we expecting in terms of numbers? Rima is joining in with us. Good morning, Rima.
Hi, good morning. So we already have numbers from Tech Mahindra, HCL Tech, TCS, and broadly the numbers from the from the IT pack. On low expectations and muted estimates, the companies have delivered in terms of top line and margins. In the case of Infosys, we are working with a dollar revenue growth of about 2.2%. Constant currency revenue growth should be up about 1.6%. EBIT margins seen expanding by 50 basis points to 21.3%, and the profit number should be up nearly 5%. Now, the key is going to be the guidance. The current guidance stands at 1 to 3%. Now, some believe that the company may raise the lower end of the guidance. So 1 to 3 may become 2 to 3. But it's not going to be material from growth estimates point of view unless the upper end of the guidance, that's 3%, is increased. Also, the company had announced an acquisition, and these are not included in the guidance numbers. So, if they do include it, then we need to see how those numbers change. EBIT margin guidance is likely to remain unchanged. Also separately in this quarter, we had that buyback announcement. So, that's keeping the stock price fairly resilient. But what will you watch? You'll watch for the outlook on the discretionary spend, the H-1B visa hike. Is there any impact on the on-site costs apart from the guidance? And then, the usual things about how are the client budgets looking like? What about advanced AI? Do they have, how HCL Tech quantified it? Is Infosys also, do they think that it warrants a separate reporting line? So lots of other things to watch, but these would be the key numbers.
Absolutely, Rima. Thank you so much for that. Important to watch out for Infosys numbers. But let's move on and talk about what's happening in the world of commodities because gold continues to shine bright. Manisha, good morning. And every day a new high is what we keep an eye out on.
Oh, yes, it's not tiring at all. And we've seen an all-time high of $4,230 announced now. Well, the latest figure clearly has been the Powell testimony at NABE annual meeting saying that the slowdown is, there is slowdown in hiring and it's increasingly threatening the U.S. economy. So with the U.S. Fed chair saying that, the markets are taking cognizance of that. And then the street is in any case betting on 2 rate cuts of 25 basis points each in 2025. The U.S.-China trade tensions, ongoing U.S. government shutdown, and demand from India with the festivals ongoing is further straining the supply, supporting markets therein. And it's not just about gold. Take a look at silver prices, 3% of gains overnight. It's trading at an all-time high of $53.50 an ounce. Apart from safe haven buying, silver also is looking at that big short squeeze in London that has sent the lease rates surging. It's a historical rally that we are looking at in silver, and with the Indian markets buying quite strong as well, these are a couple of precious metals that continue to be very, very strong.
Okay, Manisha, thank you so much for that. Important to keep an eye out on what's happening in the world of commodities, given that so much happens across the globe in terms of trade tensions, latest updates that keep coming in every day. But thank you so much for that. With that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Power Breakfast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Up next, your Bazaar Morning Call.